back, Brain Scratchers. It's me, John Lorden, and we are here this week to discuss the Dyatlov, did I say that right? Dyatlov incident. And I'm sorry, my Russian is not as strong as it used to be. The Dyatlov incident, you might have heard of the Dyatlov Pass, and essentially it's a story that is decades old. This is from 1959, a story of some what are referred to as ski hikers, that a bunch of college students essentially that were in their early 20s, 9 of them, that went on an adventure together, and unfortunately it did not come out with very good outcome. And outside of that, there is a ton of mystery surrounding what happened to this crew. So the first thing that you'll notice behind me, these are pictures of Igor Dyatlov. He was seen as the leader of the group. He was apparently the most experienced in terms of this form of ski hiking, although it is worth noting that I believe all of the members actually had experience in doing this previously, so there wasn't any newbies from what I can see. In January of 1959, 23-year-old Igor Dyatlov led a group of 8 young Soviet hikers, comprising 7 men and 2 women, mostly university students, into the Ural Mountains, attempting to reach Mount Ortorten from the small settlement of Vizhai. It took more than 3 months to locate all 9 of their bodies, and we'll get to that part of the story actually fairly quickly. Here's just another picture of some of the hikers. What was great was they were very smart about documenting what was happening. They took diaries and logs with them and a camera, and there are tons of photos and a lot of information leading up to basically the day before the incident occurred. So their campsite was made on the slopes of Kholat Sikal, which translates in a foreign tongue to Dead Mountain. At about 3,600 feet, all of the travelers, 8 of them in their early to mid-20s, with Zolotaryov, man, these names are tough, Zolotaryov in his late 30s, were experienced mountaineers, having skied across frozen lakes and totally uninhabited areas to get there. Despite nasty weather and slower progress than they planned, their last diary entries reflected high spirits. Charmingly, in a very typical Soviet way of bonding, they even produced a little newspaper about the trip, from which they titled The Evening Ortorten, and which bore the headline, "From now on, we know that snowmen exist." That quote's going to come into play a little bit later. It goes on to say they could be met in the northern Urals next to Ortorten Mountain. They were, it's thought, probably jokingly referring to themselves. I think I agree with that, but there's some people that use that piece of information in a conspiracy that we're going to get to later that sounds a lot like the Bigfoot conspiracy we all know from North America. And as usual, I'm going to have the links down below to all these articles. I'm kind of using pieces from several different sources here. Essentially, there's a ton of articles written about this. A lot of them repeat the same overall story, so I'm just trying to bring you variances and different pieces that I'm finding within across these stories. When Soviet investigators went looking for the hikers who failed to return on schedule, they first found the hikers' tent that was apparently cut open in the back with a knife. Essentially from inside, they had sliced it open to get out. The hikers appeared to have fled through the hole without their shoes, some wearing only socks and others barefoot, into the heavy snow. The investigators found all 9 bodies at the edge of the snow-covered forest. The corpses showed no signs of struggle. However, 2 of them had fractured skulls, 2 had broken ribs, and one of the hikers was missing her tongue. According to investigators, 4 of the victims' clothing had substantial levels of radiation detected on them. That is also another key point that comes up in a few different conspiracy theories. One of the theories is, were these people attacked by some kind of alien force? Were they subjected to some type of Soviet military technology that was being tested in the area? So just to bring you up to speed to this point, and we'll go into this next picture here. This is their campsite as it was found. And essentially, we believe the event happened on February 1st, I believe it's February 1st, maybe the 2nd. But the search didn't start for them until the 26th of February. This was found, I believe, on the 29th of February. And what's interesting is the investigators also found footprints leading from this that led them to the discovery of some of the bodies. So the snow cover that had happened, obviously there wasn't enough snow after what happened to them to fully cover up their footprints. You can see the tent is in a pretty horrible state, but you can see where some skis were used, probably as tent posts or to help keep the structure up a little bit. However, it is worth noting there is a ton of snow that is on the tent, and this is an unprofessional opinion, but just from what I'm seeing here, this does not look like naturally fallen snow. It is large chunks of snow, and one of the theories is that some type of avalanche might have occurred, and maybe that is what scared them out of their tent. So essentially, what can't be disputed is something scared these people very badly. It scared them enough, and it apparently obstructed their path out of the tent in some way, enough that they had to cut the tent open from inside, and they literally ran from the tent, some of them not wearing very many clothes, most of them, actually all of them, not wearing shoes. I think one person had one shoe on from the reports that I've seen. Some of them were even barefoot. So it is extremely strange, and just not realizing what the core issue was that scared them out of the tent is really probably the biggest part of this mystery. Now we can kind of trace what happens from there, and I'm going to do that a little bit later and kind of wrap it into the most plausible of the theories that it seems like people are kicking around, which is the Avalanche Theory. However, here is a nice little list. This is from spikedonline.com, and this is actually a book review of a book called Dead Mountain, and these are several of the theories that have been kicked around. They were attacked by Mansi tribesmen or others, and the Mansi were apparently peaceful and hospitable. They had no history of attacking visitors, no real reason to threaten this group, plus there was no track evidence of anyone approaching the tent. Like I said, they found very clear tracks of the group fleeing the tent area, so it's kind of assumed that if there was a tribe that was coming up to attack them, they would have seen tracks among those lines. Animal attack. Once again, there were no tracks. Why would the group abandon the relative security of the tent to run away? I'm gonna go into the theory a little bit now. Basically, there's a theory that is a lot like what we consider Bigfoot here in the U.S. They consider it the Russian Yeti, and that is one of the conspiracy theories that is falling around this story. However, this is very clear. There were no tracks. Now, I've seen some sources that make it look like some tracks have been found out there since. These tracks look exactly like what we see here typically in America. We've even had people confess to creating Bigfoot tracks out here. I have to say, in one of the photos I saw of the Bigfoot tracks they showed in the snow, for how big the feet were, the gate between the footsteps was way too small. I'm very suspect of it. And I really haven't seen any compelling evidence to make me think that there was a Yeti attack. The bodies were not traumatized outside of abrasions on two of the hikers' hands, but there was no serious trauma to the soft tissue of the body. I guess I should explain a little bit. I'm going to jump ahead. This is a very, very simplified view, almost overly simplistic view, but it'll kind of give you a sense of how the bodies were discovered. So this is their tent area, about 2,000 meters away. They find the first two bodies, and they are found next to the remains of what seems like a fire. And they're by a significant cedar tree. I read one article that suggests that the cedar tree might have been a visual marker for them, because it seems like they all ran off together in that direction. and it looks like they tried to start a fire. It appears that one or more of them may have also climbed the tree. Investigators noted that there was damage to the limbs of the tree going up approximately 15 feet. So that is where the first two bodies are discovered. And what's interesting is the bodies were literally just dressed in their underclothes. And that's it. So the next set of bodies was found, and this is a little strange because it shows it kind of veering off, but from what I've heard, these three bodies were actually found en route back towards the tent. So the first one was found at 300 meters, the second one was found at 480, and the third one was found at 630. Igor Dyatlov himself was part of this group that was found. And then finally, which it took them a few months to actually find because it was buried in almost like this ravine type area, 4 more bodies were found under 4 meters of snow. But what's interesting is all of these other people died from freezing. Here they find 3 bodies that apparently died from trauma. And this is where we get back to one of them had, I believe, a fractured skull, 2 of them had fractured ribs. The trauma was pretty severe, and one of the theories is that they fell into the ravine and possibly were hurt during that fall. Another theory is possibly they were hurt prior to that, and this was almost a plan to try to get them to some form of cover so that they could be taken care of while the team went back to try to grab supplies from the campsite. But honestly, we don't know for sure. What's very interesting about their injuries are there are no soft tissue injuries. Apparently, it would be like being hit by a car, which is what one of the coroner investigators said. It is inside trauma, and apparently there is no exterior trauma to kind of coincide with what happened to them. I think that's part of what also kicks up the conspiracy theories around this.